Rachel, let us know when we're good and we're streaming.
We are streaming now. I'm going to start the Zoom recording as well.
Rachel, let us know when we're good and we're streaming. All right, Tracy, it's all yours.
Welcome everyone to PCEF. Welcome everyone to the PCEF Grant Committee meeting for this evening. I'm Tracy Smith, your facilitator. Today's meeting will be from 6 to 8:30. We have a very busy meeting today, but before we get into the format of the meeting as well as the presenters, I wanted to review with you the virtual meeting participation check. The guidelines for the public participation is as follows. Committee meetings are open to the public. The public is invited to talk at 6:05 p.m. Around 7:20, there will be a 5-minute break. And during that time, there will be a break screen. There will be no online discussion taking place during the break. And the guidelines for the meeting, please use the chat box to introduce yourself. At all other times, the chat box will only be hosted by PCEF staff and your questions will be followed up at a later date. For committee members as well as the presenters, please use the raised hand function. If you're a committee member or a presenter, please be on video. If you're a public member, please have your microphone muted. And again, the meeting is being recorded and we have closed captioning as well. The agenda for tonight's meeting is, as I said, we will have introductions when the presentations take effect. We will have public comments at 6:05. At 6:15, there will be an overview of collaborating for climate action. At 6:20, we will start the presentations. And as I said, we have 8 presenters. I will announce every group that is presenting, but in terms of the specific introductions of those who are presenting, I will leave that to a lead person on every group. And each presentation will be 8 minutes. And I'll have to hold you to that 8 minutes. And so when 8 minutes comes up, I'll say we're at time. From there, committee members, I will take 2 questions, and those 2 questions will be within a 4-minute timeline. And we just have to do that in order to stay on track. And then the bulk of will come back after the break at 7:20. We'll come back at 7:25, continue with 3 presentations, and then the full discussion and an action item, which is a vote, will take place at 8 o'clock. If I could get the next screen, please. Next slide. I just went over the agenda. And at this point, I would like to introduce the PCEF committee members. I'll just start in the order of my screen. Robin?
Good evening. Tracy, that was a loaded introduction. So looking forward to today's conversation. Thank you. My name is Robin Wang, PCEF committee member, him.
Ranfees.
Ranfees, Tino Viatoro, committee member, him.
D'Angelo.
D'Angelo Moaning, committee member. Glad to be here tonight. Looking forward to these presentations.
Meg.
Hey y'all, Meg, her committee member and co-chair, and yes, we have a jam-packed agenda.
Faith.
Hello everyone, Faith Graham, her committee member, and I will be off video today, but listening in intently.
All right, and we have one committee member, Alicia, who is at an event tonight, but at the end, after we have discussion and are ready for vote, we will be calling Alicia to join to partake in the vote. And so at this point, I will move to public comment. I have one individual signed up online. And if you're interested in providing public comment, please do so by raising your hand or indicate your interest through the Zoom chat function. For those joining the meeting by phone, you can enter *9 on your phone to indicate your interest in providing public comments. And again, we would like you to be aware that there is a time limit of 3 minutes. So I'm going to start with Darlene Sherman. If Darlene is on, please join.
Hello,
Hi, Darlene. How are you?
I'm fine. I am Darlene Sherman. I'm a Portland resident, an ecologist by training, and a climate action advocate. So I'm here tonight and really pleased with able to see the recommendations that have been put together by the reviewers for the collaborating for climate action. So I'm very interested in seeing the presentations tonight. I'm really supportive of the renewable energy and the solar, community solar projects that I'm very excited to see those with the coming up, and the alternative transportation, because the transportation emissions are like 40%. So it's really good to be seeing some of the infrastructure things of support for the 82nd Avenue and for the sidewalks, safe sidewalks to school. So I'm very pleased with that. I do have one comment that seemed like there was an error or typo or something or other in the discrepancy between table 1 for the sidewalks to school program is different than in the text. So I would like you to check that and see which is the accurate number, please. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Darlene. Babs?
Hi, Babs Vanelli here, technically challenged senior, so I don't know what's wrong with my picture, but as you know, I've been attending these meetings for quite a while now and fully support all that you are doing and will continue to do. Looking forward to the meeting in January where that blue-green deal will be discussed. My comment tonight is there any possible way that the public, and you, can get the agenda sooner? I mean, I got the information about what all was going to be talked about tonight. I didn't get that until yesterday, and I was just overwhelmed as I tried to scroll through and make sense of it. So I didn't really have time to digest it all. So any comments on that? Is that something that's a work in progress, or what? No matter what, I will continue to attend. We'll be watching a city council meeting tomorrow when the amendment will be, the second reading on that amendment will come up. Hopefully they will vote to approve that. Anyway, any comments on what I've asked about?
Babs, at this point, we won't have comments to your question, but I'm sure PCEF has made a note of your comment and will take some sort of follow-up action.
Okay, thank you, dear. That's fine. I'm going to turn my camera off now because I'm putting brush
all right,
away.
thank you.
Bye, thank you.
Scott Strickland.
Hello, Scott Strickland, he, him, Special Projects Council for Sheet Metal Workers Local 16. We represent about 2,000 sheet metal workers and their families that do a bunch of HVAC upgrades and some architectural work and some production folks. And we're part of a council that represents over 10,000 across the Pacific Northwest. I just wanted to ask a few questions. I understand they won't be answered right at this time and flag the issue. I noticed in reviewing the submissions from the grant requests that I didn't see any labor engagement and was not aware of that or community benefits mentioned. for the Multnomah Education Service District. I know that we were a critical sponsor and helped push through HB 3031 to help address the critical need for indoor air quality fixes and energy and climate resilience hubs in schools, because we know that they desperately need that work done. But addressing the climate crisis, we think, is an all hands on deck scenario that involves mobilization of the entire community. So I just wanted to make sure that there was going to be some kind of community benefits agreement, and that labor would be a part of that. We've signed agreements like that with several dozen school districts, so that we can provide grant writing services for them, and we'd love to be a part of any fix that they need, and support them in any way that we can, as a partner in that. So just wanted to throw that out there and look forward to the answer. Appreciate the opportunity to speak, and my email address is sstrickland@smw16.org if there's any follow-up or other requests. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Scott. Is there anyone else that would like to give public comment? All right, I don't see any hands raised. So at this point, we'll move on to the next item, and that is an overview of collaborating for climate action. Sam, if you're on mute, I think I see you talking, but
Can't hear you, Sam.
it looks like Sam is dialing in.
Tracy, while Sam's joining, I hadn't raised my hand because as co-chairs, we usually like to respond to public comment when we get some. And so I just want to say thank you to the public who shared comments verbally and who sent email. I really appreciate you tracking the efforts of this committee so closely, and for your sharp attention to table figures and et cetera. And Babs, I share some of your concern about timeliness of agenda with you. Yeah, and Scott, thanks for sharing about the need to include labor. So just appreciating public for paying attention.
Your participant ID followed by pound. Otherwise, just press pound to continue. You are in the meeting now. There are
I think we hear you.
Can folks hear me now?
We can hear you,
All
Sam.
right. Okay, I'm gonna move quick, y'all, so I'm gonna catch up on some time here. Thank you, Tracy. Thank you all, and commenters as well. What I wanted to show here is this has been a quick timeline, and I think we've been clear about that from the get-go, that we were intent on getting this done this year, in part as a result of the council transition, the agendas, the fact that the new council has to get situated and formed, and we knew that this wasn't going to come before council until April, May at this point, given the way that things are getting set up. So it's important we got this done, but Babs, that was a part of also this agenda, although it is a work in progress to get our agendas up sooner, and that's something I appreciate you sharing that. So here we started in October, the full application cycle, closed that off at the end of October, and have been in evaluation now are coming before the committee, with beginning our small group discussions late last week following the closure of our review panel meeting. Now, the overall across the board, we had about 10 proposals that were worth about $511 million in total value, which you all have seen this list. You'll see a little bit of this list in a little bit, but just that's the overview of who was invited to submit proposals for the full application cycle. Now, the scoring process itself was comprised of committee members, BPS staff, external community members, and subject matter experts. Folks had about 15 days for review. And we additionally had internal and external expert technical validation of the proposed measures and the savings estimates. We had 4 scoring panel meetings followed by a staff recommendation development. Now, the scoring itself was broken apart into about 30 points, one towards the direct benefits, the climate impact, the team, the budget, and timeline. Then there's about 20 points that was scored by our, with guidance with our technical and expert validators focused on the greenhouse gas impact. There's about 35 points for the coalition approach, the community economic benefits, climate resilience co-benefits. That was scored by a subgroup that involved two PCEF committee members, Alicia Chapman and D'Angelo, as well as a handful of folks from local public sector as well as community organizations. And then we had our workforce and contractor equity approach, which was scored by a combination of members from a high roads advisory council as well as staff. Now, I'm highlighting this because the GHG impact, this is something we do for all of our community grants and all of our evaluations, but it was a significant part of the score. And this is going to be a quick little bit before I turn it over to our presenters here. But what you'll see here is there's a good bit of variability in terms of the emissions reduction per dollar spent across the projects. Now, our staff, alongside our technical validators, did review the estimates provided. We derated projects where we didn't see or have confidence in the savings estimates. But overall, the most efficient projects here, as you'll see, is from a dollar invested perspective on emissions reduction, is the project by the Bonneville Environmental Foundation, the Empowering PDX proposal, followed by the Bureau of Fleet and Facilities project, and then the Energy Trust of Oregon's proposal. On the bottom end of the tier, and we'll talk about this in some point worth further discussion, is the Food Corridors Pathway, the 82nd Avenue Transit Project, as well as the sidewalks to schools. Now, that isn't to say those are valuable, but when we look at direct emissions reduction as a function of a specific project, you know, when we talk about transportation, it's oftentimes the impact and benefit is in the system investments as a whole, and the system we're creating. But in terms of mode shift that is resulting from a specific investment, that's what we were looking at, is the VMT, the vehicle miles traveled, that would be reduced as a function of these investments. So it gives you some of the analysis that we did that impacted at least 20% of the scoring of the projects. And so in the next slide, I'm going to go over the recommendation list at a really high level and then really turn it over to our presenters. Before having one more slide where I talk about just a sampling of the community benefits and then some of the next steps, which will touch on one of the comments our commenters made. So the recommendation that you see before you all is we did recommend, as part after the evaluation, about 8 out of the 10 proposals that were evaluated. Now, all 8 proposals were downscoped. They were downscoped taking into account feedback provided during the scoring panel reviews. They're downscoped based on information we have and investments we're making, whether in our community grants or strategic programs, and where we saw ability to leverage additional funds in those sides. And they're downscoped to balance the portfolio. And so what you see is between the Energy Trust of Oregon, for instance, and the Bonneville Environmental Foundation, we have we're recommending roughly 55 million or so that is going towards really renewable energy investments. We've got a suite of energy efficiency and decarbonization investments in the other 2 projects. We've got an industry proposal here led by Bureau of Planning and Sustainability, the Clean Industry Community Program. And then we've got our transportation decarbonization proposals, which have different mixes of transportation decarbonization as the primary focus, but other investments, whether workforce development or other investments. And so the package as a whole comes out to $300 million, but reflects downscoping ranging anywhere from 2/3 of the project proposal downscope to a smaller downscope, and that would be the case, for instance, with the Bonneville Environmental Foundation. Now, we've briefed you all on some of the elements that we're going to be requesting be removed as part of the negotiations and the downscoping. But what you're going to see in the subsequent slides from the presenters is different information. Some folks have already accounted for the downscoping that they expect, and some folks are going to be presenting the full proposal, as we know that that's going to take time to parse out and pull out parts of the project. Now, this next slide here speaks to the community benefits across the recommended portfolio. Now, this is what we would be able to ascertain, but we've got over 4,400 households directly benefiting from solar energy efficiency improvements, over 7,700 students benefiting from safer and more efficient and resilient school buildings, over 11,000 riders daily benefiting from better transit infrastructure, and over 61,000 people in walk sheds receiving these sidewalk improvements. And what you see across these investments is each of these investments also had a portion of workforce development where they're focused on workforce development. We've summed that up, and that equates to about $29 million That is based on the original initial proposal, so that will be downscoped. You shouldn't expect that to remain entirely whole, but just gives you a sense for how workforce development does show up across those projects. And some of the partners are Apano, Black Man Green Planet, Constructing Hope, Leaders Become Legends, Oregon Tradeswomen, Oregon Solar Energy Education Fund, the Portland Community College Foundation, Portland Community College, Portland Opportunities and Industrialization Center, Portland Youth Builders Self-Enhancement Inc., Verde and Work Systems Inc. Now, I want to keep this part short because I know it's important for you all to hear from the presenters, but what I'll speak to briefly is what comes next. So what we're working through here today is obviously the presentation before you all. Shortly after the recommendation, once you all make the recommendation, we will take that to City Council next Wednesday afternoon at 2 p.m. Once Council hears those recommendations and acts on those recommendations, assuming they pass those recommendations, you all pass them, they pass them as well, we will begin executing our grant agreements and working on our grant agreements with our partners based on the sums stated here. Once we've executed our grant agreements, the next sort of key milestone for each of the partners here will be negotiating community benefit agreements that they need to execute prior to us dispersing any project funds. So getting to that grant agreement stage is important in terms of that certainty to know we're in the project, we've negotiated it, but that next step for them will be that community benefits agreement that each of these projects here before you all will need to execute prior to disbursement of any resources. So with that, I will turn it back to Tracy to walk us through our initial set of presenters.
Robin, you have a question?
Yeah, I more have a statement. Before the presenters begin, I just want to kind of publicly state a conflict of interest disclosure, and that I am in kind of financial partnership or relationship or discussions to enter in a financial relationship with a couple of organizations, including Apano, Prosper Portland, and Metro. And my scope with my work involves, scope work or departments that are not related at all to any of the proposals that are discussed. I'm also having strategic partner discussions with Energy Trust of Oregon and Bonneville Environmental Foundation. I'm talking too fast here, though no formal contract is in place. So just wanted to put that out for the public record before we begin. Thank you.
Thank you, Robin. As I said earlier, we will have 8 presentations this evening. The time allotted for each presentation is 8 minutes. At that 8-minute mark, I'll come back online and I'll say thank you for presenting, and it would help if at that point, if you're still presenting, that you stop. Then there will be time, 4 minutes, for 2 questions from committee members, or 4 minutes. So if committee members, if you can ask 3 questions and it's within the 4 minutes, and fine. Otherwise, I would ask that you hold your remaining questions until the 8 o'clock time period. So the first group to present is Energy Trust of Oregon, and there is for Portland Solar for All.
Thank you. Good evening. My name is Betsy. My name is Betsy Kaufman, she, her. I am the Renewable Energy Sector Lead at Energy Trust of Oregon, and we are a nonprofit organization that delivers energy efficiency and renewable power incentives and services to utility customers around the state and throughout the city of Portland. Our vision is to ensure all Oregonians, and by extension, all Portlanders, benefit from low cost and clean energy. Thank you very much for the opportunity to speak with you this evening about the Portland Solar for All proposal. Briefly, one disclosure: Energy Trust Director of Programs, Tracy Scott, is also a member of the PCEF committee, and she has recused herself from your committee deliberation of this grant proposal to avoid an actual or the appearance of a conflict of interest. The Portland Solar for All proposal before you seeks to address a historic inequity in solar energy, and that is access and comprehensive funding to ensure rooftop solar directly benefits communities of color, households experiencing low incomes, and renters. This project represents an opportunity to make a historic investment in rooftop solar for PCEF's priority populations. with nearly $25 million in PCEF funds. And just to remind you, that is the lower amount, and that's reflected in our slides today. With that $25 million in PCEF funds, our proposal team will be able to leverage existing Energy Trust funding and the state's $87 million EPA Solar for All grant to fund 750 single-family and multifamily rooftop solar projects. In addition, funding will be reserved for building repair and upgrades, as well as battery energy storage systems for several hundred households. Further, our project will invest in Portland's solar workforce, filling gaps in the solar installer training pipeline. Energy Trust will be the main administrator of funding, using all the resources we have available as a program administrator. The Oregon Department of Energy, while not funded by PCEF, will co-fund all projects with their EPA grant and has offered their full cooperation in crafting a combined program. This proposal centers on the expertise of three community partners: Apano, Community Energy Project, and Self-Enhancement, Inc., to craft a program that works for PCEF priority populations. Apano, CEP, and SEI will also be responsible for outreach and education, customer intake, and customer navigation support throughout and after the solar installation process. There are also two workforce partners: the Oregon Solar Energy Education Fund, which is an industry nonprofit, and Energy Assurance, a local solar verification and inspection firm. The project timeline involves using the first half of 2025 to develop the program, with an estimated public launch by the end of 2025. Together with our community and workforce partners, we will scale up the program activities over time and estimate grant funds will be fully spent by the end of 2029. Next slide, please. We expect to install around 725 single-family rooftop solar projects and about 25 projects on affordable multifamily buildings to benefit renters. And funding is reserved for necessary home upgrades and repairs, like roof repairs and electric panel upgrades. And this is a very important piece of this project. Not having these upgrades often prevents solar installations in older Portland homes. And funding the repairs not only supports the solar installation, but improves comfort and safety within the home. In addition, Apano, CEP, and SEI will identify households with the greatest need for energy resilience and will pair the solar with battery energy storage systems to enable these families to have some power during an outage. Over 20 years, a participating household should receive roughly $25,000 in direct energy bill savings. And this project will include workforce training and hands-on experience. The Oregon Solar Energy Education Fund will work with pre-apprenticeship training programs to expose pre-apprentices to the solar industry, filling a gap in the solar workforce pipeline. And Energy Assurance will offer cooperative work experience to annual cohorts of students at Portland Community College's Building Inspection Technology Program, training future inspectors and code officials in solar best practices. I would like to now turn to Charity Fain from Community Energy Project. Energy Trust has had the pleasure of collaborating with CEP on a variety of projects over the past 7 years, and we're looking forward to enhancing this work and benefits for PCEF priority populations if you elect to fund the Portland Solar for All proposal. Charity?
Hi, everyone. Good to see I haven't been in front of the committee in a while, but I'm Charity Fain, Executive Director at Community Energy Project. And as Betsy said, I am here representing the community partners of Apano, SEI, and CEP. And collectively, we all have decades of experience serving our communities and PCEF priority populations. As Betsy mentioned, one of our really important vital roles in this project will be really to help guide and support the creation to ensure that it reaches and serves communities who have traditionally been left behind in the clean energy movement. We know and understand the barriers of what the households we serve see throughout this process. I think it's also really important that we talk about, our role as navigators for households as they go into this program. It's simply not enough to enroll and bring someone on, but how you educate communities who haven't had access to technology in the past, how you inform them not just about this program, but what's going on with solar, renewables, and their household, so that they can make really informed decisions when they decide to join such a program. It's also really important that we as community representative service liaison with the installers to ensure that construction processes run smoothly and that a homeowner has a trusted entity and community partner to help them through that process. And then something we have found that's vitally important through our other energy related programming is that households really do need ongoing support after an installation to understand how to operate, maintain new systems, how to work with a system once it's there on their house, and that we can help them through that process. I also just wanted to note that, as you all are aware, CEP's been doing whole home energy retrofits that often, but not always, include new roofs and electrical upgrades. So we do have a list of clients now, and a growing list, who are solar ready and very interested in having a rooftop solar system installed. So as an organization, we are really excited about the possibility of being able to offer
Charity?
this to our community. And
Charity,
I'm done, so perfect.
Perfect timing. All right, committee members, do you have questions or comments? Robin.
Yeah, I have a question. Thank you for the presentation. Very informative. Can you elaborate on how the PCEF funds would leverage the, I think it was 87 million Solar for All dollars? What specifically would PCEF cover that Solar for All can't?
The Solar for All program, first of all, does not have enough funding to be able to cover the enabling upgrades, the roof repairs, and the electrical panel upgrades. So that's a really important piece of this. And this enables us to bring more funding to Portland homes than we would be able to otherwise. The plan is to stack the Solar for All grant along with Energy Trust funds to be able to fully fund. It will be more difficult to fully fund these projects without the PCEF funding.
Meg?
Yeah, thanks for the presentation. It's a really exciting and pretty clear project. I have two questions. The first one's about you, and both come more from the proposal that was emailed to us. And one, you flagged that permitting could be a possible barrier, given that many of these houses may be older. And I'm just curious if you've made progress on streamlining with BPS or the permitting department at Portland to have that not be a barrier in the, and if you could report back at that at check-ins with us, that'd be good to know. And then the second question is about the possible, and I don't think we had a process in place in this grant specifically, but we do in our other energy efficiency programs about kind of anti-gentrification, anti-displacement measures. I'm just curious if you put thought into that in the context of this program.
Yes, I think one of the things that I am very excited about this is this involves an investment in a home for people who are in these homes and own these homes, and increases the value of these homes for those homeowners. So I think it enables them to stay in those homes more easily. It also lowers their monthly costs. So I see that as helpful to people being able to stay in their home on a more affordable basis. I'm happy to turn that question over to any of my colleagues or to Charity if you have additional thoughts about that.
I do. What we often see, because, in the investments and the work that we're doing in houses, is that one of the best ways for anti-gentrification is that this now is an intergenerational asset. People passing the homes down to their family members. And because we're working with community partners that are really rooted in various communities, it's an entire community approach. It's asset building for the community and the individual. And we do see the houses, being in better repair, being in, with cheaper to operate, healthier and safer to operate. It is something that people are keeping and passing down. So, if you're keeping it in your community and in your family, that is not going to be gentrified in the way we've seen in the past.
Thank you, Charity.
And on the permitting question?
Meg, we are out of time. Can you hold it to the general conversation or discussion rather? That would be great. Next, we have Bonneville Environmental Foundation, Empowering PDX.
Yes, good evening, everyone. My name is Evan Ramsey. I am the Senior Director of the Renewables Program at the Bonneville Environmental Foundation, also go by BEF for short. Thanks so much to the PCEF committee and the whole PCEF staff for the recommendation of this proposal. We know this program has been on a long journey and there's been many challenges. And so we're very honored to be here today, along with our partners to present this program and this proposal. Yeah, also want to thank all of our partners that are joining us as well on this proposal. You see a couple of them here on the slide, and we'll touch on the rest of them on the next slide. But many of these partnerships we have built over years, and some of these partners are new, and so really appreciate the trust and the openness to come along on this journey with us. A little bit about BEF. We are a C3 nonprofit. We are 25 years old, based in Portland, and we have programs in energy, carbon, and water. Our renewables program has really focused and specialized on low-income benefiting solar, and really been focused on this for the past 8 years since the legislation was passed in the state of Oregon. In fact, we have been working side by side with Verde over that entire time period, and we're really excited to continue that partnership with this proposal here. This proposal does differ from Energy Trust's scope, and we did coordinate with Energy Trust in the application process to make sure we were not duplicative. And, we're really, proud to represent and see the scoring that the PCEF team gave our proposal, because we really do feel like community solar has a unique ability to deliver savings directly to low-income households at a cost-effective price. And we can also address households that don't own their own home. We can serve renters, and community solar subscriptions can be taken with the household if they move. So while this is also a multi-decade asset, it can also move along with the household as they move from residence to residence. So you can see all of the metrics here on this slide. It's all in our proposal, but a couple of the figures I'd love to highlight here is our budget for our community partners. We've engaged with 6 different community-based organizations to help pair the community solar capacity with the existing communities and clients that they serve. And so we have a robust budget to support our partners to engage and help us deliver these benefits to Portlanders. I also want to highlight the bottom number there, which is the amount of funding that will be going directly to our nonprofit partners and our minority-owned contractors that we've included in this proposal. So while our workforce development budget is relatively small, a lot of the actual work that will be done is going to be done by our nonprofit partners and PCEF priority population contractors. So I neglected to introduce our co-presenters today, but I am joined by a few colleagues here, Andrea, Tatiana, and Jessica. And so I'd love to turn it over to Andrea first to introduce herself and talk about the Port of Portland and the strong partnership that we have had with them over the years as well.
Thank you, Evan. Good evening, everyone. Andrea Cottle with the Port of Portland. The port has been honored to partner with BEF and Verde on this proposal. As you can see, the benefits to 1,500 BIPOC and low-income households served, as well as the significant greenhouse gas emissions reductions, has been an opportunity for the port to take some action on our stated values around shared prosperity and environmental sustainability. For the Port of Portland at PDX, we have goals of reaching net zero carbon by 2050. And currently today, 75% of our carbon footprint for what we directly own and control is electricity. And I share that just to highlight the need for more clean, renewable electricity in our region and in our community. Thank you.
Thanks, Andrea. Next slide, please. I will be brief on this one because I want to make sure our other colleagues have a chance to present and speak to the committee here. But this is a type of organizational structure where we've got our project leads and our site hosts. We've been working with the Port of Portland for 5 years on siting community solar in and around the city of Portland. We've also been talking with Metro for many years on siting community solar on their facilities. So we're really excited to get to this point and have some resources to deploy here to make these projects a reality. In the middle, you can see our community partners that will be focusing on community engagement and subscriber acquisition. Our scope will have about 1,200 community solar subscribers. And so each of these partners will be able to engage and directly recruit low-income and BIPOC households to subscribe to and benefit from these community solar projects for 20 years. So we've got Central City Concern with affordable housing and other social services, Relay Resources, which serves people with disabilities, Apano, Unite Oregon, which has diverse programs, and ICO, the African Youth and Community Organization, as well as Verde and their community engagement activities, will all serve a piece of that 1,200 household portfolio. And then on the right side is our contractor and workforce development area and the partners there. We are just turning the switch on to our first PDX community solar project, and Verde and Leaders Become Legends have been integral in the delivery of that project. And in this next phase, they will continue to support the construction and site development activities, as well as Black Man Green Plan, a contractor supporting one of our projects to be constructed. So I will let Verde and Tatiana speak a little bit more in depth about their role in empowering PDX.
Thank you. Next slide, please. Thank you, everyone. My name is Tatiana Siegenthaler Rodriguez. I'm very proud to be here representing Verde and being part of this Empowering PDX team. And looking at the slide and looking at this picture is very special to me, because in this picture we can see diversity. We can see what we achieved all together in this first project. And that was only possible thanks to PCEF commitment to inclusivity and diversity. Now moving to Empowering PDX. So Verde will be the general contractor for the site number 2, where we'll have a team made of the Builds program manager, the construction consultant, a superintendent, and a dedicated project manager. We also will provide site maintenance for another 2 sites. Also, as many of you know, Verde has deep roots in the community. So we're gonna leverage those connections to engage and subscribe 100 community members, of BIPOC communities, of marginalized communities. And on the last bullet point where we talk about community solar development coaching. So this past year, working with BEF, it was proven that Verde has a lot of expertise in construction and community engagement, but there is areas where we can expand our knowledge regarding community solar. And we grow in those areas. And the synergy with BEF has been so good, so important for us that we want to keep working with them so we can learn from them on those areas where we're lacking, and Verde then can be taken to the next level into the community solar sector and the solar sector itself. Thank you.
Thank you, Tatiana. We are now over time on this presentation. Will ask for one committee member, please. And Ramfis, I see your hand is up.
Hey, thank you for the presentation. This is awesome. It's really great to hear just all the community partnership and development behind this, and glad to see, again, some of the partnerships there on the workforce. I guess my question is, I guess given the early question we had received early in the call, have there been any considerations to partner with any union apprenticeship programs or any just apprenticeship programs in general? I think when I think of, programs and workforce training, I do see some great partners there that I think create great pipelines, but in terms of getting folks, employed and trained, do those partnerships exist, or is there still time to develop those partnerships? So that's the first just kind of question. And then
Ramfis, excuse me, we only have time for one question. So can that question be answered? And then if you have additional questions, ask at 8.
And this is kind of related. The proposal discusses creating career pathways here, but we only get a mention here of partnering with diverse contractors. And I just want to note that that's different. Employing diverse workers is different from contracting with diverse contractors, right? So I see those two distinctly. So I'm curious again, what is the overall strategy here in terms of getting, folks into a registered apprenticeship program and into these programs? So that's I guess to me, I see those all in one vein, but yeah.
Absolutely. Thank you, Ramfis, for the question. And so I'll do my best to address it briefly.
So Evan, I just want to be clear, and I really don't want to be rude, but it's a real equity issue around facilitation that everyone gets time. So there's about 30 seconds for you to address Ramfis' question at this portion of the presentation.
Sure, absolutely. So real quick, so we do have Leaders Become Legends. That is a program that is PCEF supported, that supports training for workers to get into trades like the solar industry. And so we have good experience with them, and we'll build upon that. We also have a request for proposal process that prioritizes contractors that include these kinds of workforce development programs and hire diverse employees. And we've had success running that kind of process with Verde as well. But I'll also say, our proposal was not a workforce apprenticeship focused proposal, but we do have prioritization in our procurement process to include contractors that do have those priorities.
All right, thank you, Evan. And at this time, we now have Multnomah Education Service District with citywide schools investing in climate resilience.
Great, thank you, Tracy. And if you want to go ahead and just bump us to the next slide, I will start by just first thanking the committee for the time tonight. I'm Stacy Michelson, Government Affairs Administrator at MESD, and I work on behalf of all of the school districts in East Multnomah County. So this project is brought to you by a collective of the school districts serving East Portland, and we do have individual district staff online for any questions that may come up later in the discussion about specific projects. Part of the work is that each of our districts has identified local projects based on their long-range facilities plans, which were developed in recent years with significant community input. So MESD will act as the fiscal agent across the project and will convene quarterly meetings with all of the districts to gather and share resources and learn from one another as they undertake this work. So the scope of the project, and this is based on the original proposal, is as follows. Centennial School District will replace 3 outdated natural gas HVAC units at 4 schools. They will they'll procure 3 electric school buses. David Douglas would modernize HVAC systems at 4 schools and add upgraded fans and variable frequency drives, which also reduce natural gas consumption. MESD and Park Rose will work together to replace outdated HVAC systems with geothermal systems at 3 elementary schools, 2 buildings used for MESD schools, and the Mount Hood Community College Head Start. They will also replace gas maintenance vehicles with EVs. PPS will replace HVAC systems with air source heat pumps and upgrade from gas to electric water heaters at 2 schools, along with building envelope upgrades and green schoolyard improvements at those schools. And they will also install green schoolyard improvements at an additional 5 schools. Reynolds School District would upgrade HVAC systems and make building envelope improvements at 3 elementary schools. So our initial request reflected the most pressing needs of our districts, but the work is very scalable and the districts will split any final funding awarded at the same rate that the original climate-friendly schools dollars were allocated. This work will take place concurrently with the other projects funded through that initial allocation. Next slide. In terms of timeline, as I said, these projects were identified in our district's long-range facilities plans, so districts are primed to act very quickly and begin the design process immediately. I do actually have one small correction to this slide, and I apologize, but David Douglas School District would actually have their construction completed in year 4, along with MESD, Park Rose, and PPS. So we would have 2 districts completing the bulk of their construction in year 3, the remaining in year 4, and then everyone wrapping up and closing out their projects by year 5. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Aaron from PPS to talk more about the impact.
Hi, everyone. My name is Aaron Pressberg, he, him pronouns. I'm the Energy and Sustainability Manager for Portland Public Schools. I'm here tonight to talk about some of the positive climate impacts that we anticipate based on the current proposed scope of work. These numbers reflect all the school districts represented in this project, so I'm not just referring to the PPS work. Annual energy savings as a result of the building systems upgrades includes just over 1 million kilowatt hours of electricity per year, 275,000 therms of natural gas savings per year, which equates total to about 2,000 metric tons of CO2 equivalent and greenhouse gas emissions reductions. And because this scope does include some electrification of HVAC systems, these emissions reductions will continue to increase as we know the electrical grid will add more renewables over time. In addition to the building infrastructure, part of the scope includes replacing 13 gas vehicles with electric vehicles and 3 school buses, resulting in 30,000 miles of tailpipe emissions eliminated per year, providing the dual benefit of not only greenhouse gas emissions reductions, but better local air quality as well. In addition to the building systems upgrades, we have scope dedicated for ecological restoration and greening schoolyards. We have some numbers estimated around 51,000 square feet of new vegetation planted, in addition to 21,000 square feet of depaving of hardscape. Touching on some of the workforce benefits, these projects, of course, will help bolster the local industry in design, construction, and the trades. And all districts have plans in place for targeted outreach for COVID certified firms to further prioritize PCEF workforce diversity goals. This work will direct the impact students in 21 buildings across the city. Those schools serve roughly 7,700 students, 69% of which are students of color, and 38% of whom speak English as a second language. These projects will result in better learning environments in our city's classrooms, both in terms of temperature, thermal comfort, and indoor air quality. Not only will this improve conditions for students during the school day, but in before and after school programming, as well as any programming run by community partners that utilize school district buildings during off hours. And with that, I'll turn it over to Marcus with the Coalition of Communities of Color to finish out our presentation. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Aaron. And good evening, committee members and PCEF staff and the team. Thank you for letting me talk to you tonight. My name is Marcus Mundy, he, him, his pronouns. I'm the executive director of the Coalition of Communities of Color. We're an 18-member nonprofit organization which has 18 culturally specific nonprofits that we serve and collaborate with over time. The CCC, that's our nickname, CCC, supports this climate resilient proposal from MESD and in cooperation with several other of the East Multnomah County school districts because it just makes sense to us. This work is essential because these schools serve families in some of our most vulnerable neighborhoods. And the importance of quality learning environments, but also seeing schools, that's how we see them, as community hubs, and so do the school districts. East Portland does not have an abundance of meeting spaces, so having school buildings with modern climate controls that are accessible at discounted rates for community partners will also have an impact beyond just the students. The community can use these facilities as resources. CCC is available, and why we partnered with these school districts is because we can help them with planning additional community engagement work and outreach. We will use our existing channels to spread information into the community about the work that's going on, the impact, and the available spaces. So we commit to being partners with the school districts every step of the way in this process. And I give back my time. That's all I have to say, but we're strong supporters of the school districts for this. And back to you, Stacy, or to you, Tracy. I don't know who gets it now.
Stacy, you have about 50 seconds. Would you like closing comments?
I suspect we may have some questions from the committee. So if I could just turn it over to the committee, we can go ahead and use the time that way.
All right, committee members, any questions or comments for the presenters? Ranfis.
Hey, just a quick one. Appreciate the presentation. Really excited about this one application. I don't have any big questions, but just to be consistent, any opportunities here to partner with folks like labor, like sheet metal on these projects?
Yeah, thank you for the question. I would say similar as other responses that you've heard, many of the contractors that we work with have processes in place where, they're already looking at apprenticeship programs and those sorts of things. And we would likewise prioritize those in our RFPs out to contractors. Aaron, I know that you all have some pretty strong work history there with McKinstry, if you want to speak to any of that.
Yeah, I'll just add that we don't have any specific agreements at this time, speaking specifically for Portland Public Schools. But we do work closely with all of our contracted partners when we do go out to bid for subcontracted work, which will of course be union work. So we do work closely with them to make sure that we're looking for all those opportunities, similar to how we try to meet our certified business goals as well.
Yeah, I appreciate the responses. Yeah, and again, my interest in making sure, contractors are utilizing apprentices on these projects, and, hopefully, you get students excited to get into the trades, and through partnerships with labor, you can create career pathways. So excited again. Thanks.
All right, Meg.
Yeah, I was waiting. I would cede my question for D'Angelo, Robin, or another committee member if they wanted, but I'm not seeing.
So, Meg, how about if folks want to share, I'll just call on their raised hand. So go ahead.
Okay, yeah. So I love this project, appreciate a lot about it, but one thing I'm glad to see energy efficiency measures alongside these big sort of HVAC and other investments, since reducing is sort of the first approach. And I just like the early wraparound approach, like with green schoolyards. I am the regenerative ag and green infrastructure representative on the committee, and I urged in the LOI phase to see more attention to green schoolyards. So I'm glad to see more wraparound. But my question is, you mentioned scaling down and like that schools would get just a reduced percentage equitably, but to me that might be hard with large infrastructure costs that could eat up a lot. So could you just say a little bit more about that?
Yeah, so my understanding from conversations with city staff, and this was sort of as we thought about how to do this equitably as a consortium of districts, it really was, let's use the same formula that the city has already used for determining resource allocation. That was well vetted. That makes sense to continue that process. In terms of what that means for scaling of projects, I'm not quite certain yet. My understanding is we'll navigate that in that final contracting process. So that may mean fewer schools benefiting in an individual district, or it may mean in terms of like some of those building envelope improvements, maybe we see, a lower level of that work, but still the same number of schools having work done. And that each individual district will kind of need to look at the the finances and figure out what best meets their needs within the available dollars.
All right, next we will have Prosper Portland Broadway Corridor Phase 1.
I don't think this is our correct deck.
I'm sorry, you said there is a problem. This isn't the correct deck?
Correct. We sent one over this morning by 9. It was the second deck that was abbreviated for the time.
Give us 1 second. We'll pull that back up.
Sorry, thank you.
I think I know exactly. Let us know. Is this one it?
Yep.
Okay, we're up.
Great, thank you. Good evening. My name is Sarah Harple. I'm with Prosper Portland, and I'm joined this evening by Joe Walsh with Related Companies and Noah Kone from Constructing Hope and in partnership with Oregon Tradeswomen. Before I turn it over to them, I'm going to briefly set a bit of context. The former post office site you see here is owned by Prosper Portland and the Portland Housing Bureau. Redevelopment of the site has long been called for by many city council adopted plans, but most recently, the vision for the site was established by years of community engagement and the negotiation of a community benefits agreement. The current state of the site is shown here on the left. We've prepared the site for development, but in today's economic environment, delivering on this community vision will not happen without opportunities such as this. So we're incredibly grateful to be before you tonight. Our original application was for $48 million, and tonight we're going to focus on those elements that are being recommended for funding as shown here. Other work that's imminent on the site includes infrastructure construction and the development of affordable housing on parcel 4A. As with projects of this complexity, the benefits are also greater than the sum of its parts. This project will accommodate growth in a location that would otherwise have greater climate, transportation, and displacement impacts on our region, and it sends the message that our central city is a safe investment for lenders and investors. It advances Portland's reputation as a leader in climate innovation, and it builds on our early commitments to ensuring a broader range of Portlanders will benefit from investment in this district. So with that, I'd like to turn it over to Joe in the next slide to speak to the development of parcel 6.
Thanks, Sarah. We're on behalf of Related California, Related Companies. We're grateful to have the opportunity to present parcel 6 today, and appreciate your consideration. What's exciting about this project is that it's really unheard of to have a net zero energy, net zero carbon residential development. I think this will be one of, if not the only, project to achieve that in the country. So we believe the project will set a new standard for sustainable housing development, and will present a case study for other projects to be able to achieve this elsewhere. And it's important to mention at this stage, projects like this are only possible through incentive programs like the PCEF program. So we're excited to push the boundaries and have the opportunity that's afforded to us through this program. Related's been in partnership with Prosper Portland for several years in the planning stages of the project. The PCEF funding that we're being considered for is a significant milestone that will allow the project to become feasible, and it'll also allow us to achieve these unprecedented goals. The total project cost is $140 million. The project will include 230 units of new housing in an urban walkable location near the Pearl District. The housing will be below market and will serve middle income individuals and families, which is really an underserved segment of the market. And middle income is defined as those earning between 80 and 120% of average median income. The Related team and Prosper worked with PAE engineers to determine a pathway to achieve net zero energy and net zero carbon, which will include on-site efficiency measures, including high performance HVAC systems, air source heat pumps, all electric designs, Energy Star appliances, and on-site solar, and then all of that combined with off-site solar, which will allow us to meet zero emissions and 100% clean energy. This compares to the baseline usage, if you weren't to implement that, of 2.1 million kilowatt hours annually and 7,400 metric tons of CO2 over a 20-year period. In addition, the project will deliver on the equity workforce goals that were established by the CBA for Broadway Corridor between Prosper Portland, the city, and Healthy Community Coalition. In regards to the project schedule, we'll continue design immediately if awarded, and our design and permitting process would run in parallel path to the infrastructure work that's being completed on the site currently by Prosper Portland. And so the goal is that at completion of the infrastructure work in the third quarter of 2026, we'll be able to start the vertical construction at that time. Vertical construction is approximately 2 years, which will put completion at some point in the middle of 2028. Regarding the related team, not sure how familiar the folks are on the call, but we feel confident in our ability to execute a project like this. We're building several thousand units of affordable housing across the state of Oregon currently, and nationally, we've completed 52 LEED certified properties, mostly residential, including several that are LEED Platinum, and the largest passive house development in the United States. So we're very excited about the opportunity. Thank you for the time. And I'll hand it over to Noah now to discuss our workforce training program.
All right, thank you. Can we go to the next slide, please? All right, good evening, everyone. My name is Noah Kone, and I'm the Deputy Director at Constructing Hope. And we are a nonprofit pre-apprenticeship training program that offers a free construction training course for individuals that have been justice impacted or identified as low income. We're also in partnership with Work and Trades Women, which is also another nonprofit pre-apprenticeship training program that serves people that identify as women. And collectively, we're approaching this workforce training component in a way to continue to ensure we can supply a diverse pipeline of workers for a project of this magnitude. We've been in a long partnership with Prosper Portland, dating back to some of the earlier committees that came together to determine these community benefits agreements. And we're still serving that role on some of the LMC OC committees as we continue to go. And really, we're just excited about the opportunity to come together and really have a chance to expand our space and also expose all of our participants to a net zero construction project. And as that demand goes up in the industry, we want to make sure that all of our participants are exposed to the career pathways and the new methodologies that are coming online as it relates to climate justice work. And so, the first part of our project will be just kind of assessing how we can utilize a new space to, expand our numbers, take some time to create the plans to build out that facility. And then as time goes on, we'll be able to increase the amount of folks that we serve annually. And the way our program works is that you will have a job placement once you graduate. And so just having a training space that could be in proximity to a project of this size will allow us to engage with contractors and some of our union partners as well in a way that really allows them to engage with our participants. And so we're just excited to come to the table and looking forward to growing with the project. And I'll pass it back to Sarah.
Thank you. And that concludes our remarks. We're happy to turn it over to questions of the committee.
Thank you, Sarah. Questions, comments from the committee? Robin.
Thank you for the presentation. So it seems like to me, the Broadway Corridor project has been on again, off again, delayed, changed many times. Can you elaborate on the status of the project and how the PCEF funds would be stewarded in the event of additional delays or changes to the scope of the project?
I can appreciate the external perception may be that. I think in reality, we have been slow and steady moving forward, consistent with plans that we set forth from the planning process, moving into the work that was necessary to create demolition and environmental remediation of the site, plan for streets. So in reality, while there may not be active work on the site, there was a lot of work continuously moving forward between Prosper, the Portland Housing Bureau, and our public partners to prepare the site for development. It is known that we had, a change of developers over the course of that time, but we always knew that there was a long lead time with site preparation. So I think in reality, it has been slow and steady, consistent effort moving forward, and we would continue to manage resources in that way. Because we've had that time to prepare the site for development and engage with Related over the past couple of years in an exclusive negotiating agreement, we feel like that we are ready to move forward with development at this time based on all of that pre-work that has been done. And we don't run the risk of facing delays because of demolition or because of unknown environmental protections. Remediation needs. So we were kind of prepared, locked and loaded and ready to move forward. And so that's kind of our excitement around the timing of this opportunity relative to where we actually are in the project.
Thank you, Sarah. Next, we'll have City of Portland Bureau of Planning and Sustainability Clean Industry Community Program.
Great, thank you. Good evening, committee members. My name is Sonrisa Cooper. I use she, her pronouns, and I'm the Sustainable Economy and Just Transition Analyst at BPS. And I'm joined tonight by Mary Pivoto, Executive Director of Neighbors for Clean Air, and Chris Smith, President of Energy 350. Tonight, I'm here to discuss the Clean Industry Community Program, which is a proposal that seeks to address GHG emissions, as well as air pollution and solid waste generated by the industrial sector. This is central to BPS's Just Transition strategy to curb emissions while centering the communities most impacted by industry, particularly those neighborhoods adjacent to industrial districts and the workers employed at industrial businesses. I want to acknowledge that our proposal is a little different from most of the other ones in this funding round. This isn't a large capital project. Instead, we're essentially creating a program to identify and fund industrial decarbonization projects with very strong community benefits. And by pairing those two elements, we believe that this will contribute to a just transition for Portland. Next slide, please. So in order to be eligible for funding in our program, projects have to meet a high threshold of GHG emissions and community benefits. Projects will require a 25% match from a business that's getting funded, and most of the funding will go to capital projects with some of it set aside for feasibility studies. So it's intended for industrial businesses. In terms of the GHG impact, we expect that these projects will reduce at least 75,000 tons of CO2 over the period of the grant through industrial decarbonization and energy efficiency, as well as some carbon sequestration projects. We have set a cap on the cost of each project to $200 per lifetime ton of carbon saved. This threshold ensures cost effectiveness, and it's also aligned with comparable incentive programs from Energy Trust of Oregon. We will make exceptions for certain projects that might not meet that cost effectiveness threshold, but that do create significant community benefits. And we've prioritized the facilities that will have the highest impact in terms of their greenhouse gas emissions and air pollution reduction. So those include the businesses with significant carbon emissions, that's over 2,500 tons of carbon a year, businesses with certain types of air permits, and natural gas transport customers, which are primarily very large industrial facilities that are ineligible for other incentive programs. So the Clean Industry Community Program would actually be able to reach those large emitters that don't have other ways to easily reduce their footprint. I just want to say that there's a huge opportunity here to make a dent when it comes to industrial GHG emissions, which, as we all know, can be really hard to reduce. In terms of community outcomes, like I said earlier, each project has to meet a GHG reduction threshold and a community benefits threshold in order to get funding. So the criteria for those community benefits will be developed by Neighbors for Clean Air through a robust community engagement process. And then that criteria will be incorporated into the program. We're not going to be prescriptive of what those community benefits should be. It could be, reduced transportation emissions, could be green infrastructure, job training, etc. We'll look to the community really to define what those priorities need to be. And additionally, there will also be a set aside for small businesses and minority or women-owned business enterprises. And in terms of workforce and contractor development, industrial decarbonization is still a pretty kind of nascent field, and we're still learning about the workforce and training needs for these types of projects. So all of the feasibility studies that are funded through our program will include a workforce analysis, and all capital projects will have a community benefits plan attached to them. We'll also use the funding to expand on existing workforce and contractor development programming. So Work Systems, Inc. will hold quarterly industry engagement trainings to connect their clean energy career coaches with industry stakeholders. This is a pretty specialized field, and we know that it might be difficult for us to find diverse contractors with the right experience, at least at the beginning. However, two of our team members, Prosper Portland and Energy 350, both have experience working with Energy Trust minority contractor programs. And so we'll be building on this existing knowledge base. And, we really see this program as an opportunity to build contractor capacity, moving beyond commercial construction projects into industrial projects, which will lead to greater technical assistance offerings in the future. Next slide, please. So the first 2 years of our project will be dedicated to laying the groundwork for the program. In year 1, we'll do the work to establish the program structure and processes. And through year 2, we will continue defining the community priorities that projects will be expected to meet. During this time, we'll also be working in parallel to engage industry stakeholders to identify potential projects for further study and to start planning for capital projects. This engagement is an ongoing process that will go all 5 years, that will build on existing relationships already held by project partners. And we're not starting from scratch, I want to say. We do have a starting list of projects that we've already identified, but we will continue scoping new projects and feasibility studies throughout this 5-year period. So we have a really strong pipeline. Given the scope of these capital projects, we do expect that most of them will be implemented in the later years of the grant. And we will be conducting ongoing program evaluation to make sure that we've got a feedback loop so that we can adjust and course correct as we go, because we are kind of starting this from the ground up. This isn't a very linear project, so it's a little hard to disentangle some of the activities from each other. So there is a lot of overlap in all the different things listed on this timeline. Next slide, please. So I'm not gonna describe the role of all of the individual partners because I know we're short on time, but I do want to say that this coalition of 7 organizations has formed pretty organically over the last 4 or 5 years. And actually just last week, a group of us took second place in a DOE national competition for our collaborative approach to industry. So we've been really intentional about relationship building and bringing industry and community and government together. And it's been hugely effective so far. And we feel pretty confident that we're the right group to tackle industrial equitable decarbonization. And now I'd just like to make space for Mary Pivoto and Chris Smith to say a few words. Mary, you want to go first?
Great. Thank you so much. Neighbors for Clean Air has been working for over 15 years to address risks associated with land use policy and zoning that has made neighbors of heavy industry and communities. A significant portion of air pollution reductions we've achieved in this time has been through good neighbor agreements created directly with industry, such as ESCO Steel, Vigor Industrial, and Intel. So I'm honored to be here today and know it is because of the trust from our community partners at large and in the members of the Portland Clean Industry Hub. We know there's a higher concentration of industry in Justice 40 and PCEF priority communities. And so any reductions in air emissions will benefit those who live, work, and go to school near the facilities. So we're proud to have helped create and be a partner in this innovative and groundbreaking proposal that seeks to reduce those harmful emissions from industry directly in the neighborhoods through a collaborative process that incorporates community input in the upfront scoping and funding criteria. So we really thank you for your support of this project.
And Mary, we are at time. Chris, how long is your portion?
About 1 minute.
Okay, if you could stick to that 1 minute, please.
Can do. Thank you, everyone. Chris Smith from Energy 350. We're an energy efficiency consulting firm here in Portland. Our biggest contract is with Energy Trust of Oregon to implement their industrial efficiency program on their behalf. So it's very synergistic with this effort. This year, we'll close about 700 projects, but we've also drilled a lot of dry wells. We know of dozens of industrial efficiency projects here in Portland that we just haven't been able to move forward. So we hope this additional funding will spur a lot of those projects to move forward. We also, as Samritha mentioned, want to target large gas customers that through their open market purchase of gas are ineligible for Energy Trust funding. So there's
Chris,
pretty
so
right.
if you could wrap it up, please.
Can do. We also will provide technical assistance in the form of QC and advisory services to the program to help quantify impacts and advise on funding projects. And I'll stop there.
Okay, thank you, Chris. If one committee member has a comment or question, and then we'll move to break. Branfees?
Yeah, I appreciate, the presentation. I guess my big question here in terms of reviewing the application, a big bulk of like the budget goes on a solar project. And I think most of this presentation I think is great, but I guess I'm curious, could folks say more about the solar project? Like that seems to be just a big component of this budget for this application.
I think I can speak to that if you're willing, Samarisa.
Sure, go ahead and then I can jump in as well.
Sure,
if we could, we'll need only one person, please, to comment, and we need to move to break and then come back on time for other presenters and discussion. So if one of you can address Ramfe's question.
Yeah, I can take that. Thank you, Ramfees, for the question. So the list of projects that we put forward is meant to be kind of illustrative of the types of projects, since we're in sort of a different position than a lot of the other applicants, in which we're still looking for things to fund. And that's because industrial decarbonization and renewable energy is emergent. We are working actively with partners to identify things. So we could put kind of sample projects in there. So the solar project is one thing that we would love to fund part of it. It was sort of dependent on how much funding we got from this. There are also sort of other like low-hanging fruit, more easy energy efficiency projects. We're agnostic to what it is. We just want to get those industrial emissions out of the air. And so yeah, I'm not sure what we're going to actually end up funding directly through it, but that was meant to be illustrative.
Ramfees?
Thanks. And I guess maybe Tracy, Sam, just the time check here. I know we asked for 4-minute Q&A. Are we keeping to that? Because I just want to make sure committee members have a chance to ask questions, but I'm just kind of curious on this part of the process.
It's as I said, Ramfees, it's 4 minutes Q&A from committee members.
Okay, yeah, I just want to make sure because I feel like we're being limited here, and I just want to make sure committee has a chance to ask questions for each of the presentations. But
right, and there's also discussion, Ramfees, at 8 o'clock. And so what we're going to do now is take a break. And Meg, if you could hold your question, please, or comment until the 8 o'clock discussion, and come back in 5 minutes, please. And again, we have a half hour for discussion and vote at 8 o'clock. So come back, and we'll come back at 7:29.
Can I confirm that you can hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Thank you. I've had issues with Zoom, so I appreciate that.
You're welcome. Sam will go ahead and get started. We have next the City of Portland Bureau of Fleet and Facilities. It's BFF, Portland Community College, and Portland Community College Foundation collaborating for climate action on workforce development and capital improvements.
Are we ready to go?
Ready, turning it over to you.
All right, thank you. Hello, my name is Maddie Sauter, and I am the Bureau Director for the Bureau of Fleet and Facilities with the City of Portland. And I'm joined here tonight by my community partners at Portland Community College and Portland Community College Foundation, and I welcome them to introduce themselves.
Good morning, good evening. I'm Christina Klein, Executive Director of PCC Foundation. Tara?
Hello, I'm Tara Nelson, Program Dean of Building and Environmental Technologies and Trades. Josh.
Good evening. My name is Josh Coleman, Program Dean for Aerospace and Transportation Technologies. He, his pronouns.
Great, thank you. Next slide, please. And you can actually skip past this as well. So we chose to submit this grant largely compelled at first by capital issues at the City of Portland, in which we have aging assets and a very large fleet, the largest municipal fleet in the state, that both were underfunded and required additional financial support to really achieve the city's climate action plans. That includes reaching net zero with our fleet by 2050, if not before, as well as managing end-of-life assets within our structures. In the course of so doing, we realized we do not just have capital problems, we also have fairly substantial staffing problems. And so the opportunity to bring a community partner into the mix was ideal. We don't just need staff to install things, we need staff to maintain things. The asset maintenance is the largest portion of an asset's life cycle. And we have shortages today, and we anticipate shortages in the future with regard to clean technology, equipment, and assets. Next slide, please. With that, we recognize an opportunity for partnership. We realize that we have already a longstanding partnership with PCC. Many of our staff came from PCC. We have staff who teach at PCC. And we routinely partner with Tara and Josh's instructors to source students and bring them into our workforce. And this was really ideal because PCC also recruits and supports students from historically underserved communities as part of their core scope. And we felt that this intersected very well with PCEF's mission in terms of helping people move into living wage, sustainable career pathways. Overall, we are seeking with our proposal to positively impact the region by developing a workforce not just for us, but for others in the region, reducing energy use, and of course, reducing emissions with a fleet that transports all over the region. So those are the three pillars of our program. We're looking to increase regional opportunities for education, particularly in the trades and clean technology trades. We are looking to replace end-of-life assets in our structures and then move our city fleet organization into a new facility in 2026 that can support a green fleet operation at scale, which our current 100-year-old facility cannot. Next slide, please. I do want to note that we found out on Friday that the grant was coming down by about a third. So some of our data here is related to the original outcomes that we'd forecast, and we'll calibrate those later. But I'm going to hand it over to Christina to really speak, Christina, Josh, and Tara to speak to the workforce development outcomes.
Thanks, Maddie. So as the largest institution of higher education in the state, PCC is well positioned to support workforce development with a focus on green jobs. Through our Opportunity Centers and Future Connect, we'll continue to partner with community-based organizations and engage prospective students from communities of color, as well as students from other historically underserved communities. Currently, nearly 50% of PCC students are from communities of color, and almost 2/3 of our students have indicated some form of basic needs insecurity. In a recent third-party study conducted with PCC and PSU, Of 800 non-credentialed Oregonians, those without post-secondary education, cost is the #1 barrier for individuals starting college. That's why our proposal includes funds for scholarships as well as wraparound services. We will engage pre-contemplative college-going individuals, helping them become the students of today and the green workers of tomorrow. So let me turn it over to Tara to talk about some of the workforce.
Thank you, Christina. As I said before, my job title is Program Dean of Building and Environmental Technologies and Trades. So I support a lot of the HVAC, facilities maintenance, pre-apprenticeship and apprenticeship programs and other construction and building-based programs at PCC. So one of the things we plan to do is do some exploring in the building energy management, we want to add on to our facilities maintenance program by expanding into that area. And through our partnership with the Bureau of Fleet and Facilities, we will start with the needs of the city and expand out beyond that to other industries. And then based on what we hear from industry, we'll conduct a gap analysis of existing and needs for new coursework. Some of the scholarships that are built into this grant will be used to support students into this potential program area. And so I'll hand it over to Josh.
Thank you, Tara. As part of my scope of work at PCC, I support PCC's Automotive Services Program, and we're really excited about this opportunity to work with City of Portland to help lower emissions and achieve decarbonization goals. So as the training partner, central to our work will be the development of 3 levels of electrification vehicle training certification based on standards recognized by the National Institute for Automotive Service Excellence, ASE. Level 1 will be a general electrical safety awareness. Level 2 will be an EV safety certification, and level 3 will be an EV specialist certification, more advanced. Not only will we deliver this training to Bureau of Transportation fleet workers, but our program will use this experience as a model for providing this training to other incumbent worker groups and organizations within our region. This partnership will also position the Automotive Service Program to create additional training pathways for new students entering the PCC program. We believe the development of new technologies is an essential aspect of increasing diversity within the automotive service industry. And I will turn it back to Maddie.
Great, thank you. So as noted, that's our first pillar. We also have a second and third pillar that are really focused on those capital needs I mentioned earlier, replacement of 68 assets that are energy inefficient in our structures at the city, reducing greenhouse gas emissions, costs, et cetera. Fleet decarbonization really focuses on us moving city fleet out of the Kirby garage and into the Cutter garage, which will allow us to keep pace with the existing path to net zero that we'd forecast, which otherwise we really would not have the ability to effectuate if we had to stay in the facility we're in. Last slide, please. This is a pretty robust timeline for a short presentation, but long and the short of it is workforce development will require some readiness work on the first 6 months of the program, and then we move into implementation with outcomes to be defined and refined as we as this closes. Otherwise, the EE and fleet decarb projects are already in process, and so we will continue with that work for fleet decarbonization and wait to get notice to proceed to bundle and issue contracts related to our energy efficiency projects. And that is it.
Thank you, Maddie. Committee members, anyone have any questions or comments? Meg?
Yeah, could you just say a little bit more about how PCC in this thought about apprenticeship and worker training has considered other actors in the region who are also doing similar work to train and certify workers, and just trying to better understand that space?
I can take that question. Meg, so you're asking about PCC and basically the pre-trades program and partnering?
Yeah, you know, across our PCEF projects, we're funding so many different workforce type projects, and sometimes they're through apprenticeship. This is through a community college that proposes to scale up. And, you know, it's an interesting relationship between a facility and a community college. Why not go directly to, I just want to understand that a little bit more.
Okay. Well, I think in the pre-trades programs, I know that there's like the trades industry, there's such a high need to get folks into that industry. So and our program is not that isn't financial aid eligible. So one of the things this grant will allow us to do is that we have some scholarship funds built into the grant will allow us to support the students who are in that program. Did that answer your question though?
Yeah, I mean, I saw there's like a small amount of money in the grant for scholarships. I was more thinking about like were other partners considered who also do apprenticeship programs and workforce locating of folks in these fields?
Well, we initiated the partnership because we're the sponsor for this proposal. I think, though, in the design of the proposal, one of the things that we're expecting is that by funding education, particularly around the maintenance sector, in total, I think the original proposal at 62 million had 1,200 people potentially getting through with scholarships and graduating. We don't employ 1,200 people. So our idea was that since we're experts, we could serve as a market partner to PCC to help identify as an employer where are their gaps in knowledge and training, and that by helping them fine tune their programs, especially with, we have the largest fleet in the state from a municipal standpoint, we have a huge diversity of vehicles. We could really help Josh identify what the market is looking for and where we need training. Likewise, on Terra's side, we serve many different types of assets from a facility standpoint. So if we provide that market insight, we help fund them to develop qualified labor, then their graduates can go anywhere. Ideally, we would get some of them, but it's not just a direct feeder to our organization. So that's where we're really seeking to serve as a regional catalyst for workforce development, with the idea that, as that sort of built-in market partner, they could go to OHSU, they could go Howard S. Wright, all over the place to help serve what is really, frankly, a regional deficit in skilled labor.
Ramfis, I see your hand is up. I'm just really trying to get through the next two presentations. So again, if you could hold your comments for the discussion. So next we have Tri-County Metropolitan Transportation District of Oregon, and that's TriMet. And this is for the 82nd Avenue Transit Project.
Okay, good evening. My name is Duncan Huang. I'm a resident of a corridor. I have a privilege of co-chairing the Transit Steering Committee, and I'm also a Community Development Director at APANO, representing the 82nd Avenue Coalition, which is led by Oregon Walks, Verde, Unite Oregon, and APANO, along with dozens of neighbors, organizations, and business associations along the corridor. We all want this project to happen. Just a quick side note, I'm thrilled about this process. These projects that I've heard tonight all embody the vision that our organizations had for PCEF when our organizations streamed this up. So I want to thank the committee for creating this process. So APANO has been organizing and advocating for 82nd and the J District at the heart of this corridor for the past 14 years. And we're building upon the work that community has done here for many decades. We have had to fight for investments to address poor public health outcomes, higher rates of asthma, and to reduce traffic fatalities. Today really feels like a milestone and the result of years of organizing. The 82nd Avenue Transit Project, the workforce development investments, and the cooling corridor improvements in our proposal is something that we've been hearing from our community for decades. And I am so excited to be able to make that community vision, which seemed just impossible a decade ago, a reality. I'm going to turn it over to Michael and John to speak more about the project itself.
Thanks, Duncan. My name is Michael Kaiser. I'm the project director for 82nd Avenue for TriMet. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, thank you. You can go to the next slide, please. As many of you know, Line 72, which runs along 82nd, is our highest ridership bus line on our system with nearly 9,000 daily trips. Over 70% of those boardings are generated along 82nd Avenue, and this also represents one of the most diverse areas in the state. Unfortunately, Line 72 is also our most delayed line due to growing congestion along the corridor And 82nd in particular has seen a real lack of investment over the years. With the help of our PCEF partners, we're looking to change that and turn this ridership and the service that we provide for our community around. As you can see on the left side of this screen, 82nd will be the focus of this project. It will run from the south, which is Clackamas Town Center, all the way up to what will likely be a northern terminus at Cully neighborhood. The communities that surround 82nd Avenue represent PCEF priority populations. When these buses are stuck in traffic and people can't reliably get to work, shopping, where they live, we definitely see this as an equity issue. Faster, more reliable service will contribute to this community and the environment. These improvements will reduce vehicle miles traveled, and to give you a sense of that, we expect within the first year to reduce VMT by 1.2 million, and by 2045 by 1.8 million. We also are looking to reduce greenhouse gas emissions by operating zero-emission buses and replacing what would normally be a diesel fleet on this line. So currently on line 72, buses emit around 140 metric tons of CO2 per mile per year. We're looking to offset that on this segment 100%. TriMet and our partners are leveraging this moment to bring infrastructure investment in the form of sidewalk improvements, improved accessibility, connectivity, safe crossings, tree canopy, bus shelters, and lighting to this corridor. So no shortage of investments through this large public project. In turn, these improvements will greatly benefit the communities that surround 82nd and the users of this corridor. When we address these reliability infrastructure investments, reliability issues through infrastructure investments, we're also able to expand access to jobs in the region and in turn create greater economic empowerment. With our community partners, we look to be leveraging this project to be doing more in terms of job and wealth creation for individuals along 82nd Avenue. John Gardner is going to speak more to this later in a few slides. Can we go to the next slide, please? For our project timeline, we are currently approaching our 15% milestone and our locally preferred alternative, which I shared with you on the previous slide. This summer, we will be procuring, doing early procurement for a contractor through a general contractor, construction manager procurement approach. That allows them to come on for pre-construction services and start the work not only related to the design and costing and schedule, but also work within the community as it relates to creating job opportunities from the 82nd Avenue community. We look to wrap up design in the spring of 2027, followed immediately by construction. We have about a 2.5-year window for construction and look to complete construction in the summer of 2029 with the start of revenue service in that same summer of 29. I'll turn it over to John Gardner, who's our Chief Inclusion, Diversity, Equity, and Access Officer for TriMet. John?
Thanks, Michael. Next slide, please. And I think Michael talked about, so when it comes to TriMet's approach to workforce development and contractor development, the 82nd Avenue Transit Project represents a new focused way of investing in community and ensuring the residents near these types of projects receive not only the environmental benefits and the expanded access to fast and reliable transit, but also gain access to the career pathways available through these larger community investments. The proposed workforce program is also responsive to specific concerns identified by our CBO partners as it relates to wealth creation as an anti-displacement strategy. language-specific programs for community residents, and contractor development within BIPOC communities. The project supports funding for Opano and 82nd Avenue Coalition partners to help connect community members into TriMet's expanding clean energy job training programs, as well as support new scholarships into proven regional construction pre-apprenticeship training programs. These scholarships would ensure folks along the 82nd Avenue corridor have access to the training that leads to the family wage jobs that this and similar projects will provide over the coming years. And as far as our contracting strategy, we are focused on recreating much of the success we saw on a similar project, the Division Transit Project, which set new records for the state of Oregon for both the amount of dollars and percentage of work that went to women, minority, and disadvantaged business companies, while also ensuring for an incredibly diverse workforce on the project. Our plan is that through the investment in this project and the workforce and the contract development program, we can set new benchmarks for how a community can benefit through equitable infrastructure. And by partnering with the 82nd Avenue Coalition and all of the community-based organizations they represent, we can really offer PCEF priority populations real career pathways and an even greater chance to be part of the projects that happen in their neighborhoods. And with that, I'll turn it back. Yes.
We are at time, and so I'm going to ask committee members if one committee member has a question or comment. D'Angelo?
Hi, Tracy. Thank you for recognizing me. I just want to say that I'm very excited for this project. I appreciate the partners at TriMet that came to present to talk more about this particular one. Understanding the impacts that TriMet has made in the Southeast Corridor with the Vision Transit Project, and really seeing the partnerships, the very intentional partnerships that you have with 82nd Avenue Coalition, PYB, Oregon Trace Women, so on and so forth. It really shows attention to what community wants and how to meet those community needs while also ensuring that, business is done as usual. So I really appreciate just the intentionality behind making sure the community was heard and that their voices were centered and that they didn't just have a seat at the table, that they had a voice at that table as well.
Okay, thank you, TriMet and D'Angelo. Next, we have City of Portland, Portland Bureau of Transportation, Sidewalk to Schools.
Good evening, PCEF committee. Thank you for this opportunity to speak to the Sidewalks to Schools proposal submitted in partnership between the Portland Bureau of Transportation and Oregon Walks. My name is Millicent Williams, and I am the director of the Portland Bureau of Transportation. This Sidewalks to Schools proposal is a genuine community initiative. Parents, neighbors, and organizations from across Portland, and especially those most affected by the lack of safe pedestrian facilities for children, came together with Oregon Walks to advocate for PBOT's collaboration on this endeavor. These communities were thrilled when PBOT decided to join in. Since that time, PBOT and Oregon Walks have been working together on this proposal, aiming for a transformative impact on Portland's sidewalk infrastructure, leading to schools. From this community advocacy, Sidewalks to Schools was born. There are about 170 miles of missing sidewalks on the pedestrian priority network in Portland. This funding will be used to fill critical sidewalk gaps in 9 locations in the neighborhoods that need it most. Thank you to the PCEF staff and the committee for this opportunity, and I will now hand it over to Gina Gastaldi to present on the projects. Gina.
Thank you, Director Williams. Next slide, please. My name is Gina Gastaldi. I'm the pedestrian coordinator at the Portland Bureau of Transportation. Thank you so much for this opportunity to present. With the $20.5 million in funding from PCEF, PBOT will construct 9 of our Tier 1 sidewalk projects, which are seen on the map here in yellow. These projects are all in East Portland and Cully. There are over 17,000 households within a half mile of these projects who will benefit from the sidewalk infrastructure for these neighborhoods. We had originally requested $60 million across a total of 3 tiers of projects, but I will be focusing this presentation on the Tier 1 funding that we are being recommended for. The Tier 1 projects represent some of our highest priority projects and those that can be constructed efficiently, relatively quickly, and by taking advantage of already completed planning, design, and matching funds. Tier 1 is focused on delivering sidewalk projects and nothing else. In this way, these projects utilize PCEF funding for maximum construction outcomes that will result in highly visible and highly popular projects that meet our community's needs. This is what community members who signed off on our coalition letter want for PBOT to construct critical sidewalk connections to schools. Next slide, please. The Tier 1 projects are all high priority projects that will build these critical sidewalk and pedestrian connections in Cully and East Portland. These projects are all on the PBOT Safe Routes to School primary investment route and will provide critical connections on our pedestrian network near schools. The 3 Cully projects described here, number 1, 2, and 3, are 100% designed and ready to be built. This means that construction can start as early as summer 2025, and all of the PCEF funding for these projects will go directly to construction. This is an incredibly efficient use of the PCEF funding with no city staff time being covered by this fund. There are 4 projects in the Tier 1 bundle that are through 60% design, as you can see in this graphic, which means that the design team has a high level of confidence in these cost estimates and our ability to deliver. These 4 projects are on Northeast Shaver, Southeast 130th, Southeast 117th, and Southeast 115th, and can leverage funding outside of PCEF to finish the design, meaning that, again, all of the PCEF funding will be used directly to go toward those construction costs. The remaining 2 projects, numbers 8 and 9 on this graph, in this Tier 1 bundle have not gone through design, but we have concept designs and planning level cost estimates. These 2 projects were really included because of their high priority score and community requests to fill these critical gaps. The PCEF funds will be used to both design and construct these 2 projects on Northeast Fremont and Southeast 128th. All of this funding for the Tier 1 projects will construct about 14,000 linear feet of sidewalks across 9 projects and will add approximately 90 ADA compliant curb ramps. This project will also be creating space for and planting about 240 street trees, adding tree canopy coverage in the neighborhoods of Portland that need it the most. Additionally, any project that adds curb and sidewalk is required to manage stormwater, which is another benefit of this program. The added stormwater management will help to mitigate the negative impacts of climate change for adjacent properties by reducing nuisance flooding and property damage during large rainfall events. For example, the Cully project would add 17 new sedimentation manholes, 24 new sumps, 60 new outlets, and 1,800 feet of storm pipe. So this will help to reduce nuisance flooding in the Cully neighborhoods. And again, this would be completed for all projects. Next slide, please. This is our project timeline and key milestones, again, just for the Tier 1 projects. So given that the project development work has already been done for 7 of the 9 projects in Tier 1, the funding provided by PCEF will go primarily to construction costs. In Cully, for example, PBOT has done the design work. We just simply do not have the money to build the sidewalks as designed. All $6 million requested for sidewalks in Cully will go directly toward the construction costs. As part of PBOT's commitment to advancing equity, at least 30% of our contractors will be disadvantaged business enterprises. These businesses are owned by racial minorities, women, or other disadvantaged individuals as certified by the state. City of Portland Procurement administers and enforces the contract equity program and workforce training and hiring program on all low bid projects, which is this what would go through. Procurement staff will amend the specific goal numbers for COVID participation, workforce diversity, and apprentice hours within these existing programs to match the PCEF requirements. PBOT has a good track record of achieving contract equity goals on projects, and procurement has dedicated compliance staff to ensure that the contractor is meeting its equity requirements. This includes weekly queries of subcontract and workforce participation numbers during construction progress. And next slide, please. And I will hand it over to my community partner, Zachary from Oregon Walks.
Good evening, everybody. Zachary Lauritsen, he, him. I work at Oregon Walks. We advocate for pedestrians. We also receive funding from PCEF to organize walking school buses with the goal of replacing car trips with groups of kids happily walking to school. You may know that in the United States, there's actually been just a catastrophic replacing walking and rolling and busing to school with single occupancy trips, kids being plopped in the back of their cars and driven to school. And there's lots of negative outcomes as a result of that. And I'm really proud to live and work in a community where we're trying to do something about that and turn that around. In that work that we do in community, we hear over and over and over from families, it's not safe for my child to walk to school. And that's fair, because if you spend any time out in Northeast Portland or East Portland, there are just massive long swaths where there's not a sidewalk to be seen. And the reason why is because that used to be outside the city of Portland, and the design standards were different. They didn't require sidewalks. When development happened, when it was annexed into the city, there was no plan to finish those sidewalk networks. And so here we are 40 years later with kids, thousands and thousands of kids who don't have safe routes to school. We were genuinely jumping with joy when we heard PCEF staff had recommended us for funding. It's kind of a hopeless feeling, to be totally frank with you, hearing again and again from families about their fear for the safety of their child to do the simple act of walking to school. So this was incredibly welcome news. So thank you. And I also just want to take a moment and give a lot of credit to PBOT here. This was a community-driven request from students and parents and teachers and administrators and folks just from around town who came together. They wanted a very reasonable thing, which was a safe way to get to and from school. And we organized and we asked PBOT, hey, will you go after this? They easily could have said, no. We're too busy. We've got too much going on. We don't have the bandwidth. We aren't interested. And they didn't. And special kudos to Gina and her team, kind of being an advocate on the inside with her team to pull together the resources and put this application together. I'm super excited that a big bureau like that could have their ears to the ground. They could hear from us and say, yeah, we'll go for it. And here we are tonight, really hoping that you confirm it and say, let's go. That would be really wonderful. So thank you for your time. I hope you'll have a wonderful evening.
Thank you, Zachary. We are over time on this presentation. I will open it up to the committee, and we are at 8:01, and this is the time for the committee to ask more questions and just have discussion, with the goal being an action item for the presentations, the 8 presentations. So committee members, comments, questions?
And Tracy, just to clarify, this is beyond just now we're just beyond asking direct questions to sidewalks, but for all applicants.
Well, Ramfis, I would say now's the time for all questions for presenters and discussion, because there's we just have a half hour remaining, and this is the action item portion. Should come as a result of questions and discussion. Ramfis?
Well, I'll break the silence here. One, I just want to appreciate the time and care for the folks who did the presentations here for us today. I know it's always a lot to come on a Thursday. But it's always appreciative to hear not just from folks within the city who live and breathe this work, but to hear from community groups and other forms of government talk about these proposals. So it does definitely helps, I think, breathe to life just a little bit around the heart of these projects, and appreciate, again, I think, what these projects can be meaningful for transformation for our communities. So I think for myself as a committee member, I will just know, I will likely vote for each of these proposals. But I do have some key red flags that I might make some recommendations unless I can get some clarity and questions answered, that I might make a specific request to make some potential cuts. But I'll just flag one. I think in terms of like the city fleet proposal, I think Megan asked some pretty good questions in doing just some behind the napkin sort of math here. It seems a big chunk of the workforce development, setting aside the worker incumbent training fund, which I think is really critical to the program. It seems quite a large investment in workforce training, without a clear understanding what the return on investment would be for workers and participants going through that training. As was noted, it sounds like there will be a hiring commitment for some, but unclear for how much more. And so just doing the math in terms of 18 million or 18.8 million investment in workforce training and expanding a program that still has to go through stages, it feels like there are a few inherent risks. And I think Megan asked a pretty good question. Are there existing programs that exist with track records that we could be looking at and partnering? And I want to honor and acknowledge the city of Portland's approach to this, but I think the part that's difficult to reconcile is what essentially amounts to a potential investment of $16,000 to $15,000 per student if the goal number is 1,200. So I think there're just inherent risks for that large of a workforce investment. So I think if there's any sort of further assurances of what around helping me understand that size of investment, I understand the importance of building energy management program. But I think if there are programs that exist, I think it'd be good to get a deeper understanding, again, why we would go a new route for expanding rather than re-strengthening the ones that do exist. So I think that's just fundamental question there. So that's my first question. But I'll let other folks ask their questions. So I don't know if there's anyone from City Fleets or who wants to address that.
Yeah. So I want to make sure I fully understand. So in our experience as an employer, we have critical vacancy rates often in both our fleet maintenance and facility maintenance fields. So it does seem like there's a lot of interest in getting people into the construction field, but less so into the maintenance side. And the maintenance side is the longest life cycle of an asset. And just for reference sake, I think when we submitted this, we had a 67% vacancy rate in facility maintenance positions. It's now at 91%. So these are critical frontline positions. They're the ones that take care of these buildings once they're constructed. And it's incredibly hard to find licensed professionals who can do this work. So there's already a fundamental shortage at the foundational skill level for these workers. And it's not just us, it's region-wide. And so building that foundational workforce is an act of educating, and that's what these programs do. And then from there, they can go on and get higher level skills training, for example, in EV maintenance or on the building side, building energy management systems. And then incumbent workers throughout the region who are already employed in these spaces may not have been in school or done apprenticeships while these more modern technologies are on board. So when you're experiencing vacancy rates at the level that we're experiencing, and that's not uncommon, you can look at almost any major building owner in the area and they're experiencing the same. And you look at some of the economic data and forecasts for what the gap is, it would, for us, it's sort of a no-brainer that you would want to train and route people into these fields. They're living wage jobs. I think our facility maintenance techs are now at $45 an hour. Our energy or our mechanics are somewhere around there as well. So they're good jobs. They're necessary jobs. They're needed region-wide, but in order to access them, you have to go through some of that training, and then often you're pairing that with an apprenticeship as well. So I think there's been a couple of questions about this. I mean, why aren't we doing something else? And I guess I'm not really sure what that something else is, because the education elements are sort of the initial pathway to getting to some of those higher level of certification or other types of programs. But I will, yeah, go for it, Tara.
I guess I just wanted to add, at PCC, we do already have a facilities maintenance program and an HVAC program. And so what this grant opportunity would allow us to do would be to add on a whole set of courses that really focused on the building energy management. So we have some scholarship funds money set aside to support students in the programs we already have. And then we want to build out a few additional courses that may lead to a specific building energy management certificate. And we want to hear from industry folks on like what that skill set specifically is needed. Does that help?
Yeah, that helps. I think what just brings a more fundamental root, I guess, question for me is just what is the root cause for the barriers to entry? I think I think what was explained here is there have been historical career routes, training programs. There are folks who are working construction, but for whatever reason, it sounds like um, a career in facility maintenance is not as attractive. Hopefully, I'm not misstating what was said as it is in construction. So I guess to me, it kind of begins to ask the question, is there a deeper root concern? Is it the comparable wages between both fields? Is it, you know, access? I think I think my root question is like, do we understand the root barrier and is strategy being proposed helping address that? But again, I think for like, as I did the behind the napkin calculations, we're talking about 16 to 15,000 per student. It begins to ask the question, all right, like, you know, you know, is this the solution? It's a pretty interesting proposition. I don't want to discount or devalue it. It's just knowing the root here is kind of important.
I think Christina can answer.
So, excuse me, everyone. We've spent quite a bit of time on this particular question. I see other committee members have questions, and we're trying to, we extended the meeting by a half hour, so I'm trying to get us to end by 8:30. So, Meg, if you could go ahead and ask a question, and then Robin will move on to you.
Yeah, try to be super brief. I really appreciate all the presentations and the thought that went into the applications. Thanks for being here, everybody. I'm excited by all the benefits that staff showed the table, the benefits to PCEF priority populations. That's at the central of this funding, I hope, and the strong community partnerships that all these projects showed. I think I will, as the regenerative ag person on the committee, express a little lament that there is no project around regenerative ag moving forward. I guess the school project has maybe a tiny amount in there, but I feel the need to always flag that as with my role on the committee. I hope one day we get to see a big project for regenerative ag. And overall, I feel really good about a lot of these projects. I do have a question about the BPS project, the Clean Industry Hub one. I think there were a few questions raised and I don't know that we'll get time to fully sort this out, but the application admitted it's a very unusual one and that the proof of concept is not fully developed. So it's more of a planning project, really. And it's a lot of money to put in a planning type project. And the budget that was provided showed a lot of the money going to one industry, and then some community colleges were on there, which I found a little puzzling because I was expecting to see industries in the more traditional sense. So I think my question on that is just to respond to those comments.
Yeah, thank you so much for the question. It's a very valid question. I will say that this work around clean industry originated about 4 years ago from a pretty contentious place. I think that folks from industry would agree with that as well. And so we've really focused on relationship building, heavy engagement and relationship building for the last 4 years. Because I think we've recognized that if we want to reduce industrial emissions, it is going to require a lot of just bringing folks to the table that we haven't worked together with them very closely in the past. And so it has been a bit of a journey to try and figure out the projects that are viable out there. And there's a number of reasons for that. One is that industrial decarbonization is very expensive. It requires kind of bespoke custom solutions. It's not really you can't just install a heat pump the way that you might for a residential project. It's just the technologies are a lot more emergent, a lot more expensive, and the businesses that we're targeting don't have the expertise right now or the kind of internal resources to figure it out. And so I think we've just come to realize that if we want to address those emissions, we really need to work hand in hand with industry. And so what you're seeing in the project list is, like I said, it's illustrative. There's kind of this gap of there are a lot of project ideas out there. The funding is not there. So that's why we put the feasibility money in there, because we need a lot of, those businesses need some support to actually figure out what is viable. They need engineering. They need a lot of kind of support to figure it out. And so the projects that are in there, I want them all to be funded. It probably won't be like the whole amount of all of them because we don't have enough funding for that. But if we can get momentum among, either a few big projects or lots of small industrial projects to kind of show that this is doable, that there is a case for industry and community benefits, then I think that would be a success. And just to address your question about PCC. So the original, I mentioned that this originated in a fee that happened 4 years ago, the Healthy Climate Clean Air fees, and that targeted industrial businesses and hospitals and universities. And because they're all regulated by a similar air permit. So we included those in our proposal. So it is intended for industry, but really it's for big emitters, big air polluters. Does that answer your question?
Robin?
Yeah, Tracy, you'll be happy to know it's not really a question, just more of a comment. So my comment is I can't say enough. I really do not like the rushed nature of this process. To have 30 minutes to discuss $300 million is just not right. And I can't emphasize enough that we need to come up with a different process going forward. I was also a little skeptical going into this, but I am actually pleased to see some creative projects and collaborations among this cohort of projects, how priority population communities were engaged throughout or centered in each of these projects, as well as a kind of a strong diversity in the types of projects and the types of applicants or organizations. I was pleasantly surprised. That's all I had to say. I'll just wrap up by saying that, I want to thank all the staff and the reviewers for their work in reviewing and vetting these projects, especially considering the short and rushed process that we had to go through to get here. So that's it.
Faith?
What a perfect follow-on to Robin's comment. I just want to appreciate my fellow community and committee leaders for asking the important questions, but also for the amazing presentations tonight that really answered the itch of what these projects really are. I do understand your point, Robin, about it's not enough time to really consider these. And yet, at the other hand, we have been involved in the process since the beginning of this solicitation, and we have many reviewers that have done the due diligence and really poked the tires, I guess. I don't know what the phrase is, to understand that these are really good projects that are really community driven. They appear to be. And so I was very excited by the presentations tonight and the materials that we reviewed in advance. And I personally am ready to advance a recommendation that we approve this slate of grants. So that's my comment, and I'm warm and ready to vote when we are ready for that.
All right, thank you, Faith. If we could go to the next slide, please. And I know there in the chat, there is a question about following up with RANFEs and providing further information. My thinking, and Sam, please verify this, is that there can be follow-up after the meeting, if that's correct.
That is correct. Obviously, this isn't the end of these. We expect so, and just checking with the team, we're working on looping in Alicia. But yes, we will be able to follow up and connect the project team to answer questions that committee members have.
All right. So what I'm doing now is just reviewing the modified consensus decision-making process. This is a process that we use at all meetings. I won't read all the content, but we've talked about the proposal. After this slide, the action item language will be presented at that time. I will do a temperature check of the committee members. If there's further discussion or amendments, that will take place at that time, and then a decision of some kind will be made. So if we could move to the next slide and review the language for the action items. So the recommendation before the committee is, I move that the PCEF committee recommend to City Council the funding of the 8 projects listed in the staff memo in the amounts specified in the memo. And at this time, I will do a temperature check, and Ramfis, your hand is up, so I'll start with you. Oh, your hand. So Ramfis, I'll still start with you for a temperature check.
Yeah, as I noted earlier, I think I'm very much supportive of funding all 8 applications. But what I will note is throughout this process, it's been really consistent to ensure, one, the projects that move forward since the LOI phase had to be pretty clear cut when we were going to be building these projects. And so I think based on some of my concerns with the industrial process, like I want to believe in that program, and I believe it should get funding. I want to recommend, if we move forward, that we allow some of those feasibility studies to move forward, and at least fund half of that application, and allow some of those projects to cook a little bit more and come back to PCEF. There were many other applicants that were removed over time because, for the sole purpose of lack of clarity, what they were going to be building and at what timeline. And I think it's really important that we're continue to be consistent. And I know industrial symbiosis, industrial decarbonization work is really difficult, and it should be moved forward and be funded. So I just want to note for folks that if we do move forward, that's kind of my recommendation. Additionally, I think I still have concerns with the glut of funding with on the transportation city fleet work. It seems like it's really important, if we spend that large amount, it is really incumbent that there are many different training and employers connected to ensure that there's a return on investment of time and money for students going through that program. To me, it still seems like if we allowed that idea to bake a little bit more, knowing that there are programs like TriMet transitioning its fleet services, knowing that we might see other regional governments transitioning its fleet services, it seems like it would behoove us not to ensure that there are better partnerships and all hands on deck around creating a career pipeline. So I do want to, request at least some trimming on that workforce. But for the most part, I do want to honor all the funding requests from applicants here. Those have been 2 concerns. I agree with Robin. It's been pretty quick. But I do want to agree with Faith, we do need to move, forward. So those are just where I'm at this stage, and folks can change my opinion, but that's just my concern at the moment.
Robin?
I'm generally in favor.
D'Angelo?
Overall, I'm in favor. Admittedly, there are a couple projects that I still have some concerns and misgivings about, especially as I listen to Ramfis's comments. I think he makes very valid points, but overall, it doesn't necessarily deter me from feeling good about moving forward.
Meg?
Yeah, I feel overall warm. I do want to understand when we'll hear about the CBAs, the community benefit agreements. So maybe staff can chime in at the end and share with us. In addition to the pace comment, the speed, my other comment too is that I know we are only 6 committee members, which is making quorum and voting a pressure point. And so I urge staff to also move forward on fulfilling our 3 missing committee positions. I also think we're missing more perspectives that would be really helpful in evaluating these proposals. So I will continue to ask about those missing committee member positions. And I do share some of the concerns. Overall, I really am supportive of the projects. I do support Ranfus's idea of maybe awarding half. I've flagged a few concerns I have about the industrial hub. So I like the idea of funding half and kind of learning more as that proof of concept gets developed, and kind of maybe holding half for hearing more about that. It would be a direction I would support on that particular project.
Faith?
I am warm on this proposal. I'm ready to make a motion, and I am wanting to honor the reviewers' due diligence and work that they've done on these proposals, that these were the best proposals that we received. I feel good about them, and I'm excited for Portland and Portlanders.
Sam, I know that you were getting in contact with Alicia. Does she have comments on the temperature check?
We are trying to get in touch. And so let's, unfortunately, I think we're going to give her another ring here and see if we can pull her in. Otherwise, we would need to, otherwise, I mean, I think committee members could weigh in individually, but as a body, you wouldn't be able to make a recommendation. And so we're going to try Alicia one tap here. If we can give it, if you can give us 45 seconds here, we'll give her a ring as well.
Okay, so you just want to pause at this point, Sam?
Yeah, I think that's if we can, if we can, I think. Yeah, I think we need to pause just for 45 seconds, and then we're gonna give her a call here and see if she can join.
All right, we'll take a pause, everyone.
Yep.
In our pause moment, I do want to thank D'Angelo and Alicia for your work in reviewing these proposals as addition to these committee meetings. So thank you.
I guess while we wait, given that I put forward the idea of moving forward with the 8, but with amending the couple applicants' full funding request. Do folks have concerns with that, or probably would be worth being on the same page before Alicia joins?
Ranfis, I do have concerns with that. I don't know how we supplant your idea with that of the many reviewers.
Good point. I think what I would propose is that for the industrial hubs work, that we hold half the money until they come back with their feasibility studies and apply the funds to their project. As we noted, most of the application, the part I can't reconcile with what our reviewers did is on the industrial hubs is a big chunk of the budget strictly goes to a solar project. And what I read in the application was mainly an application around industrial symbiosis work, which is not a problem at all, but I think it's just very few details on the solar project. So Faith, unless you see something in the proposal, or if any of the scorers are present to speak more on this, it's just kind of the only glaring piece that I see that I think would be interesting for someone to explain. But that's just the part I think it's just not a lot of details there.
Sam, turning it over to you.
I would turn it to the project team, some recent team, if they want to speak to that particular project. But also, I think in the absence of, I think we have to acknowledge that Alicia's at a pretty important dinner here. If we're not able to pull her in, what we would do is just call for individual committee recommendations, and we would relay that. But it wouldn't be a committee. It would not be a committee decision. It would just be individual. It would just be individuals, and that's what we would carry forward here as we refine the ordinance that's heading before council tomorrow. Or as we update the ordinance, I'll head before council next.
So Sam, you're saying that without Alicia to vote, that the committee would just be providing recommendations to city council for tomorrow?
They would just be providing recommendations as individuals. It would just be, we would relay that this is where individuals stood, but it wouldn't be a committee recommendation. For the body as a body to speak as a whole, they need to have quorum and needs to vote with quorum. So it would just be, we would say, this is where individual members were that were present.
Okay, so I want to circle back then, Ramfis, to your recommendations. And because the committee said that they were in support of those recommendations, if those could be restated. And then if the committee can provide feedback on if they want those recommendations to move forward to city council.
And Tracy, I just want to acknowledge Sunrisa Cooper has her hand up, and if she has any comments to share there, I want to give her, just because she was sort of the person I had pinged there. Sorry.
Sunrisa, go ahead, please.
Yeah, thank you. I'll be brief, and thank you, committee members, for your feedback on that specific proposal. I do want to just emphasize that we have a technical advisor on our team, Chris Smith, who's here today, and his company, who will be there to help us kind of define the bounds of the projects that we ultimately fund, and also who will help us validate the dollar per ton of carbon that we'll be, spending on these projects. And so there are projects that are in there that are, they're conceptual right now, or they're ideas, but ultimately we're not going to fund anything that doesn't really meet that high standard of GHG emissions and that high standard of community benefits. So I do just want to say that it's exploratory. That's the sort of project that we could do a feasibility study for instead of just funding it. It's still kind of dependent on how much funding we receive from the committee and how things shake out, what other projects come to light as we do more outreach with industry folks. So I understand that one has been kind of a confusing, problematic point, but I do just want to say that we have structures in place that will make sure that we're spending the money responsibly.
Robin?
Yeah, I wanted to go back to Sam's comment. I don't know if I fully understand what you're proposing, but it sounds like we would not send a recommendation to city council as a body, and I'm concerned that that sets a precedent, meaning that a future thing comes up and we just need 3 people to say they're in supportive and it goes to city council. I'm very concerned about that, considering all the shortcuts that we've had in process.
Per your bylaws, now, as you all, in your bylaws, you all have a higher bar for quorum. This was the decision of the committee back when earlier on. You all have a higher bar for quorum to make decisions, and so it isn't a simple majority of committee members present. It is you need 6 members to make a decision and at least 5 affirmative in order to make a decision. And so, because we don't have those numbers tonight, this evening, you all as a body would not be able to make a recommendation. That's what I'm clearly stating is as a committee, you could not make a recommendation.
Well, with that note, is there a way that we could put this meeting on pause, reconvene when we hear from Alicia, or reconvene tomorrow early in the morning?
We can follow up about that, Ramfis. I don't want to be scheduling, I guess, with individuals here in this moment. I know that I actually know for a fact that actually probably isn't going to be possible. I know for sure there's at least one committee member that will be leaving out of the country tomorrow. So I guess I know that. So I think that at least I think that you'd have to leave it there. Either you all could make recommendations, but it wouldn't be recommendations of the committee.
Sam, can I make a recommendation that I don't know if is accurate per our bylaws?
Go for it. Let me hear it.
So my guess is that we all have to be on the line together. But the 5 of us who are here could make a vote, and we can see if Alicia can add hers in an email to all of us, including staff, so that we can come out with a recommendation from the committee.
I will pull up the bylaws here, and I'm fairly certain that unfortunately we cannot do that. But I will pull up the bylaws because that's what's being asked here, and I will go ahead and do that back here.
Yeah, I think for the sake of respecting public meeting laws and quorums, I think we should probably try to play this one by the book.
Yeah, I totally agree, Renfis. I don't think there's another way to do it. I don't imagine that, given that this is a public meeting, that we can notice it quickly enough to get it on in the morning. I'm the member flying out of the country tomorrow. If it was in the morning, we could make it work still, but I don't think we can notice a public meeting fast enough.
Yeah, I'm scrolling through here, folks, but I'm fairly certain that I think all folks need to be present here. So I think what we can do here, y'all, I don't know, I'm not in a position at least to say if there's an alternative path here, but what we can do is immediately here follow up and see if we can do an 8 a.m. meeting tomorrow. And I don't know if that works for folks, we can send a quick doodle right after this for 8-9. Faith, we can, that is, and I think I want to say for emergency meetings, we can put them on with less than the 48-hour notice, which this would be one of those. So we would be able to do that from a notice perspective, but it's just it's a question of calendars at this point.
8 a.m. works for me.
Works for me. Happy to be up 7:30. Well,
I will be up early in Seattle bound for my company holiday party, and hopefully I will not be in a cell phone desert.
My day starts at 6, so that works just fine for me.
I have a 6 a.m. call.
So I'm hearing that the morning works, and just to note it, we
don't know Alicia.
Confirmation. No vote by proxy, but we'll circle back with Alicia, and we'll have to circle back with you all here. But we'll circle back immediately around an 8 a.m. meeting. Right now, let's put 8 a.m. on our calendars and plan for that, and we'll circle back immediately with Alicia.
All right,
Okay.
Sam, so does that conclude the meeting?
That concludes this meeting.
All right, everyone, thank you to the presenters.
Wait. Sorry, someone was just in. Sorry, that was very rude of me.
Go ahead, Rachel.
I saw a phone number pop up. Now I don't see it. Did someone else let in Alicia potentially? It was too fast to notice if it was her number.
Well, if the number, they should be in the meeting. Let's wait a couple of seconds and I'll look and see if anyone is connecting.
I'm not
I
seeing
don't
one
think we
that I
have it all.
can identify.
I'm not seeing anyone that's connecting, Rachel.
Yeah, let's go ahead and, I think we're gonna, let's go ahead and call it. If we see, if I know as much as I'd like to linger, I think let's, we'll follow up immediately about at the 8 a.m. meeting here.
All right, everyone. As I was saying, I would like to thank the presenters, community members, public members, and of course, committee members. Have a good evening.
Thank you.
Thanks, y'all, for the creative.
Thanks. Good night.
Thank you.
Thank you.